Very good afternoon again to everyone. Uh, this is Uday here from Incubate Hub, and I know the second wave of pandemic really has taken toll on almost most of us, I would say. And so there was a little gap. We are resuming our series of webinars. Incubate Hub has been hosting, and I hope every one of you are staying very safe and taking all the precautions. Uh, so we would begin today. Today has a very exciting topic yet again. In fact, given the digitalization which has really picked up during the COVID times, at an accelerated pace, across customers, across markets, across geographies, I would say, and across customer segments, people have been really accelerating their digitalization journey, in terms of seeing as to how they can do the complete app migration and going on data, cloud, and security. These three aspects have become extremely critical in terms of how people are segregating their plans around this. And in this whole journey, we are clearly seeing that being agile, right, in this whole journey, while someone takes up a call in terms of what to migrate, what to transform, which applications to really retire, or which ones to continue as is, the legacy applications. And what do you do, in terms of which one should go into private clouds, and looking at the edge computing also proliferating, and various types of data which are getting generated, right, from computer visions to the blockchains to the likes, and also impending 5G which is coming up. I think on the edge it is again going to add to complexities. So cutting the chase, would not like to take too much time. What I am trying to draw attention is that it is extremely important that making enterprises IT agile and cost effective, and running it in a kind of a factory model, while the whole digitalization journey and migration is happening, is extremely critical. And the CIOs are really looking towards this as a very key differentiator in terms of accelerating their pace and investments into these areas. And no better than today, we have an awesome speaker, right, who is leading Indicus. And you would have heard Sunando speak a couple of months ago, in terms of how they have really helped emerging markets in launching their public cloud services. I mean, really, I am proud of this company in terms of how one what they have developed, right from consulting to really setting up complete public cloud services, especially when data privacies have become so critical. And they have been guiding multiple countries against it. All the telecom service providers and ISPs around the world, they are really guiding them to set this up. Just to talk about Sunando, Sunando, who is CEO at Indicus, founder and CEO, with a total of 20 years of experience in ICT and IT services space. He has led teams in business strategy, sales, alliances, product development, and pre-sales, across the portfolio. If you ask me, in the IT space, uh, he has leadership experience, and due to which I think having founded Indicus in around 2013, he has really helped major service providers, as I said, in the emerging markets to launch their public cloud services. uh, so without much ado, I would invite Shunando to today walk us through in terms of what they have, the offering in terms of making their enterprise IT agile and cost effective. Shunan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Uday. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Let me just share my screen, and then we can get started. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So thanks everyone once again for joining this afternoon. And the topic which I'm going to talk about today is making enterprise IT agile and cost effective. And the primary objective that we're trying to achieve here is to show you how building using private clouds as a method to build your IT infrastructure is still a very cost effective and advantageous way for the right kind of workloads, obviously, and how we go about doing it for our customers. To start with a bit about our company, Indicus. So we are a 100% cloud solutions company. Is the only business we do. Very niche, very focused. And we focus on using open source technologies to help our customers build a cost-effective, yet a feature-rich cloud platform. And we are a 100% tech company, with a mix of people from cloud, data center, telco, managed services, data, DevOps, and enterprise SaaS domain. So that gives us the right mix of technical know-how to go and deliver solutions like the one we are presenting today. Quick overview of our customers. We work with a wide variety of customers ranging from fintech companies, telecom companies, airports, education, data centers, telcos, and all. So we have worked in so many spaces, and given the experience that we have, we can literally address today any kind of use case, any kind of workloads that need to be done on the cloud through our platform. So today, when you think about private cloud infrastructure, it is really, and the reason why a lot of people today opt for public cloud is because private cloud infrastructure by itself is complex. You have to look at it from so many aspects, from so many angles, starting from your design, architecture, management, maintenance, software upgrades, etc. Then hosting the cloud infrastructure, ensuring timely availability of resources on the underlying hardware, etc. So that's why we've seen a lot of people looking to move to public cloud. But moment you move to public cloud, you realize public cloud is not cheap. And while the pay-per-use model and the elasticity does appeal to you, but for most enterprise workloads, which is typically not unpredictable workload, which is has a certain very standard linear growth path, and typical enterprise applications have very predictable usability matrices. Private clouds still are a far better cost-effective option. And we'll show you how we approach that while addressing all the problems that you see today in deploying private clouds through our solution. So the first thing that we focus on is building using open architecture and open source. For ages, moment you think about private clouds, you think VMware, then of late there has been Azure Stack and OpenStack, but these are highly complex, mostly proprietary solutions or open source, even if it's open source as vendor-backed solutions, which means that there is a high level of lock-in that you end up having with either the system integrator or with the ISV whose platform you're using. And especially with something like VMware, which has a very, very high cost of ownership through licensing, the whole value that you want to derive becomes nullified, because your total cost of ownership becomes super high. But if you look at public clouds are all running on today on open source technology. So why does your private cloud need to run on closed architecture and proprietary? So that's the philosophy that we bring to the table, and therefore we have a very, very open architecture where you can choose, completely agnostic of the hardware stack that you choose, end-to-end integrations. So from a user experience perspective, you still use it like a public cloud from a functionality perspective, but it's completely dedicated and completely hosted for you. Now, a lot of enterprises have gone up to the level of virtualization, but not taken the next leap of moving to a private cloud or cloudifying their infrastructure. And what the benefits that you get from moving from traditional virtualization to private cloud essentially come across these four paths. Firstly, scalability and replicability, which allows you to create a very standardized infrastructure and scale up pretty rapidly across compute, storage, and network requirements. Secondly, around performance, when you cloudify the infrastructure, you're able to give guaranteed performance on multiple aspects around storage performance, around network performance through the orchestration layer. And that enables you to give a more predictable performance environment for your business users. Third, and a very, very key benefit is automation. When you cloudify your infrastructure, you're sort of creating an internal public cloud within your organization, which essentially means that you can give control to end users to go and spin up their infrastructure on their own and enable a lot of automation at the back end, integrating with business workflows, with your existing workflow management systems, etc. So that takes it to a very different level from a functionality perspective. And then lastly, the cross-platform analytics that you can deliver using cloud orchestration layer and also do very high level of workload management, that also drives a lot of benefits for the users. So now coming to a solution. So what we have essentially done on our platform is build a combination of open source technologies and automation to design, build, and manage your public and hybrid cloud, your private and hybrid clouds. First and foremost, we focus on the design part. Now, we believe that one size fits all doesn't work here. Every customer has a very unique requirement from a workload perspective, from a business workflows perspective, from a performance requirements perspective. So therefore, we spend a very good amount of time looking at the design that we need to deploy. We spend time with your architects, application teams, understanding what are their needs from the platform, and accordingly design the cloud, sort of custom design it for your organization's needs. Once the designing is done, we also take care of the build out, ensuring that everything is done as per design spec. At this stage also, sometimes what happens is customer specifications change and there is some requirements which come up or some tweaks are required. So we accommodate all that during the build phase, working very closely with your IT team and ensuring that what is finally delivered meets your needs 100%. And then lastly, once it goes operational, we take over the complete management of the platform. We give you an end-to-end SLA on the platform. So you don't need to look at multiple vendors. The entire cloud environment is managed under a single SLA from our end with 24/7 monitoring, all updates, all patches, everything is handled by us. So this effectively gives you a completely managed service while running the cloud either inside your data center or in a co-location facility of your choice. So you get the best of both worlds, a completely managed infrastructure, but behind your corporate firewall, under your corporate policies. To give you a brief overview of the solution framework, from a hardware perspective, we are completely agnostic. We can go with mostly any brand of servers. We have worked on the leading brands like Dell, HP, Lenovo, etc., as well as ODM brands like Huawei and Supermicro. Then on the network side, we worked on Juniper, Arista, Cisco, HP, and a few other company gears. On storage side, we work both on software-defined storage and traditional SAN infrastructure. So both are very easily compatible to the platform. And depending on the hypervisor choice that you go for, we would recommend the right storage solution for your needs. Then coming to the virtualization layer, we work on 3 hypervisors primarily, KVM and Zen server being the open source alternatives, And for some workloads, if you still want to continue to run a ESXi or a vSphere environment or VMware vSphere environment, we can run a multi-hypervisor environment for you. So let's say 50% or 70% of your environment running on KVM and 30% of the environment running on ESXi, and all being managed from a single pane of glass. Then on top of that, for the cloud orchestration, we use Apache CloudStack. CloudStack is one of the leading open source cloud orchestration layers used by more than 200 large enterprises and telcos globally, including the likes of Apple, British Telecom, KDDI, and many, many others. So it's a very, very reliable, stable, easy to use, easy to deploy, easy to manage platform. And we have been working on this for the last 8 years. We've got very, very deep expertise on this platform. And that's how we can give you very, very consistent SLA on this. Then we've seen of late a lot of adoption of container technologies within enterprises. So we also support containers on this platform. So you can use a mix of Kubernetes and Rancher to manage your container clusters, and that will also be supported by us. And then for monitoring, we use open source platform called Zabbix, which is integrated to both the hardware infrastructure as well as all the software elements to deliver a single pane of glass from a monitoring perspective. Apart from that, we can also integrate to your existing systems. If you have internal ticketing system, if you have internal workflow management system and all. So we have a team of DevOps engineers who can build custom workflows or automation for you and deliver an integrated workflow from your existing enterprise systems into the cloud environment to create a seamless experience for your users. Coming back to the key benefits, number one, there is zero vendor lock-in. You decide to which kind of hardware you want to go, what kind of hypervisors you want to choose, and even apart from the alternatives that we have presented, there are other options also that we can work on support on. Since this is built on open source technologies, there is a 30% reduction in CapEx and OpEx. We have seen this consistently across all our customers. They have been able to reduce their TCO by at least 30% at a minimum, and some going even up to 50%. There is 100% flexibility and transferability. Everything that we have deployed is open source. So let's say a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, you build your own in-house expertise on this platform. We are more than happy to transfer the ownership of this entire environment to your team. So we can work on a build and operate model also, as well as a build, operate, transfer model. Both work for us. We are absolutely okay to move the ownership and management of the cloud down the line to your team. And ensuring that it's simple, secure, and scalable is something that we focus on. So from a security framework that we use on the cloud and the architecture and every software element that we use on the cloud, ensure that it's 100% secure, scalable, and simple and easy to use. Now, one of the benchmarks that we do is, what a lot of customers ask is, what are the benefits of actually building a private cloud versus public cloud? First and foremost is security. While it's a wrong thing to say that public clouds are not secure, but public clouds have a very generic security framework, and it's a one-size-fits-all strategy. Whereas in a private cloud, the security can be managed at multiple layers, and it can conform to your specific industry standards or guidelines or any kind of certification standards that you may want to follow. For example, if you want to build a cloud as per PCI DSS compliance, etc., all that can be done on a private cloud. Whereas doing it on a public cloud takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, because the basic security framework is a one-size-fits-all. The second benefit that you get is around governance. So you can establish a very strong and bespoke governance on your cloud around access, around user rights, around quotas, and many, many other factors. Whereas on a public cloud, the governance framework is very limited to what you can maybe drive from your Active Directory or some other basic frameworks. Third element comes to performance. On a public cloud, you really have to play around with multiple flavors of the cloud offerings to actually find the right offering for your workload. Whereas in a private cloud, we can actually tune the needs, the private cloud infrastructure to the needs of your specific applications. We can actually design a private cloud infrastructure based on specific workloads or specific applications and deliver, be it bandwidth performance, be it storage performance, network performance, all that can be delivered on a per application basis. More importantly, since it's not a shared infrastructure, so there is no noisy neighbor issue. If there are other, in a public cloud, if any of your other tenant VMs running on the same host start creating traffic, that ends up affecting your application or your infrastructure performance, which is not the case on a private cloud because they're able to tune it to the last degree. And the last and the most important point is cost. For predictable workloads, private clouds work out at least 30 to 50% cheaper than public clouds. This is both on a 3-year and a 5-year TCO, including hardware cost, including management cost, everything put together. Private clouds work out 30 to 50% cheaper than public clouds. Now, coming to the use cases that we commonly address for our customers, first and foremost is migration. So any kind of moving from a public cloud to a private cloud, that completely can be handled by us. A lot of our customers choose to run their disaster recovery on a private cloud and or a primary site on a private cloud and the DR on a public cloud, or both on private cloud, so that all these three scenarios can be handled by us. Then moving from a proprietary stack like VMware to our stack, saving on licensing costs, or even creating a hybrid architecture where 30% on VMware, 70% on open source hypervisors, that can be done for cost savings. And then delivering for a distributed enterprise team, any kind of private cloud, which is multi-location, multi-tiers, multiple access, that can be done also very effectively. And lastly, for special use cases like SAP and all, we can design very, very high performance clouds for SAP workloads, Oracle workloads, etc. So these are use cases that we have done for our customers, and we're more than happy to do for you. Now, coming to some industries and verticals that we have worked with. So telecom is the largest vertical for us. About 70% of our customers are in telecom sector. And as you would understand, for telecom, this is mission critical infrastructure that they are deploying. So we are managing 4 such telco environments at a global level, which covering products, services, consulting. And they are running it as a commercial cloud and selling to enterprise customers in their geography. Then we work with a number of BFSI and fintech companies in India and Nepal. We support a stock exchange platform. We support a loyalty management solution platform. We support a financial wallet platform. So many such use cases we have addressed for our customers. And fintech has very high performance demands as well as security demands. So we are able to meet all those requirements from our platform. Then another very interesting vertical that we have done a lot of work is the airports and aviation sector. So we have worked with multiple airport operators, as well as setting up airport clouds, which are again need to be extremely secure. They are monitored by the governments of their countries, and they have to deliver mission critical performance because the entire airport management runs on these platforms. So again, designing mission critical clouds for airports is something we have done extensively. So how we typically engage with our customers. So we have broadly break up into 3 kind of a services model or a design model. First is a small cloud, so which is about 100 physical cores, or you can say about 100 VMs, which is the smallest setup that we go with. Then a medium-sized cloud, which is about 1,000 cores or about 1,000 VMs that customers do. And then large clouds, which are anything more than 1,000 cores. So for this, our basic engagement model is a scale-based model, and we provide a single SLA with around-the-clock support. complete design, build, and manage is owned by us. This is completely handled internally. We don't outsource any of the elements to any of our customers. So we are an end-to-end system integrator and managed services provider for you. This is a quick overview of the technology ecosystem that we work with very closely. So we have global partnerships with Huawei and Dell for any kind of hardware, for Storepool and Cloudian for software-defined storage. On the hypervisors, as I mentioned earlier, we work with KVM, Zen Server, and VMware, orchestration and cloud stack. For containers, we do more of Kubernetes, but we also support Docker. For container management, we use Rancher. Then from application management perspective, we work on GitLab, Jira, Confluence, so any kind of CI/CD pipeline design, etc., can be done by us. We have a very extensive logging and monitoring stack, Elk, Splunk, Zabbix, Grafana, Prometheus. And then for automation, most of the work that we do is on Ansible and Terraform, but if needed, we can also work on Chef and Puppet. So very comprehensive mix of technology ecosystem, mostly open source that we work with. And we use all these technologies to deliver a very, very high performance, efficient cloud tier. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, one could unmute, if you have any questions, or, you could share it on the chat, and we would read it out.
Hi, Sunando. Suraj here.
Yeah, hi, Suraj.
This is very lovely. I mean, it was very knowledgeable and kind of a deep dive, more technical overview for me. I come from a more of a product management and especially not being a developer, so it's useful. I would love to know if you have done any kind of blockchain developments or what kind of a, I don't know, private, public kind of node infrastructure. What changes when you kind of do?
Yeah, so see, basically, when you run any kind of blockchain workloads, what you need is a containerized infrastructure. So that is something we have done for one of our fintech customers. So if you want to run a blockchain development environment or a blockchain operations environment, we can build a private cloud setup for you for that.
Okay.
But that will be basically 100% containerized.
Right. And yeah, thanks for that. It was insightful for me to know that private clouds can be 30 to 50% cheaper than public.
Absolutely. And not many people realize that, but public cloud, especially the hyperscalers, they are expensive.
Yep. I mean, I have seen videos by these Oracle and SAP folks saying that public cloud is always better, especially because you can handle your peak capacities, or you can scale up your testing environment, and you can have many UAT environments, and you don't need to build that kind of a cloud.
Yeah, so for I'll tell you, for certain workloads, definitely public cloud is better. So if you have any kind of workload which is spiky and temporary, where you don't need to run it consistently for a long period of time, but only 2 hours a day, but you need 100 virtual machines or 1,000 containers for 2 hours a day. For those kind of workloads, obviously public cloud is better. That will be far more cost effective. But if you see traditional enterprise applications, your ERPs, your CRMs, and all those intranets, HRMS, etc., all are consistent, always running environments, right? So from that perspective, and they are not spiky. The load variation over a month or over a year doesn't be by 5 to 10% or 20%. So for traditional enterprise applications which are not spiky, which are running 24/7, a private cloud is far more cost. So for certain workloads, a public cloud is better. For certain workloads, a private cloud is better.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks a lot.
Any other questions?
Yeah, while Sunando, I mean, really appreciate the whole comprehensive coverage of yours in your presentation. While I mean, we wait for other questions. I just have some queries. I was just curious to know whether can we use HCI hardware for private cloud deployment?
No, absolutely. So HCI can be used, but we have a very interesting solution where we can build you an open source HCI cluster. So using a mix of software-defined storage and KVM hypervisor, we can
Mm.
actually use any hardware and build it in a HCI architecture. So that really makes it far more cost-effective while simplifying your infrastructure and reducing your infrastructure costs. So usually proprietary HCI stacks like Nutanix and VxRail and all, this works out far, far cheaper.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks. See, many a times we are seeing that these days, with the whole data growing like, across various channels, right? I mean, can this solution be used, say, only for backup or a disaster recovery, from your own private cloud? Would
No,
that make more sense? Yeah.
definitely can be used. Again, depends on your backup and disaster recovery needs and industry compliance requirements. But
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of our customers run, so as I mentioned, they run it both as primary and DR. Some run it only as primary, some run it only as DR. So we have got all three scenarios in our customer base.
Right, right. And so I'm sure, in terms of prioritizing, especially during the complete migration to cloud, right? How do you see this whole planning, and your services really catalyzing that process in terms of, say, speed and, agility? When you say, what are the specific things which you feel that, that your team is, or the whole solution stack per se, and the kind of playbook which you have enables a customer to get that comfort that things will be done in a pretty much of a kind of a factory model, I would say, the whole
Yeah, so
migration.
so what we've done over the last 8 years is that we have sort of standardized every aspect of our, service offering and widgetized it. So there is nothing which is like experimental within our architecture. Depending, once we do the design analysis for a customer, we just pick up the right elements from our stack and provide it as an integrated solution. Now,
Mhm.
when a customer is looking at cloud, there are two, three things he's expecting. One is a completely managed environment where he doesn't need to bother about the infrastructure. He doesn't need to bother about hardware. He doesn't need to bother about anything. He just needs an SLA. He needs performance. That's it. So that is what we focus on, that we take over every aspect of the infrastructure design, right from hardware to software to services management, design everything, and deliver it as if it's running on a public cloud. But obviously the customer knows and we know it's a private cloud. So today we have partnerships with all the leading data center colocation providers. We have partnerships with the hardware providers. So we can give the entire solution on a OpEx also, let's say for a customer. The customer, you need not even buy the hardware. He gets the entire hardware plus software in a single price OpEx model, just like he would buy a public cloud. He need not have his own data center to host it. We can host it in a third party data center. It can be completely managed by us. Even for that matter, if the customer needs services like OS management and DB management and all that, that can also be provided again through our data center partners. So to the level to which the customer wants to outsource and get a managed service, we can customize the entire offering to ensure that he is only focusing on his business and his day-to-day work, and the anything to do with infrastructure is completely managed by us.
Correct, correct. I think, and that's the reason I think I still recall one of the East Europe consulting firm in this space actually got interested in actually working with you. So I think I get where you're coming from. Actually, that's where I think the USP lies. To be able to get that comfort of getting end-to-end advisory plus also complete deployment services. I think that brings in a big value, and customer can actually just focus on their application portfolio in terms of what they want to do with it. Correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, anyone else, if anyone has a question, kindly unmute yourself and you may ask. So Sunando, while I think in case anyone has I mean, taking cue from what we discussed till now, I'm just getting another query, in terms of, do you see any compatibility challenges, right, with specific set of applications, right? Because applications these days are, in the enterprise space, both internal and external facing applications, uh, and with a lot of customer facing applications which are growing right from, I mean, with other pure play supply chain and others as well. But do you see any challenges of compatibility in the whole of the solution stack which you have?
Yeah. So what has happened in the past that some very, very specific application vendors sort of have a dependency on the underlying hypervisor or the underlying OS. So in those scenarios, we have to do some design changes. And that is why when I mentioned that a multi-hypervisor strategy sometimes works out best. So like in one of our customer examples, he had a couple of applications which are very proprietary and very industry specific applications, but the application vendor wanted ESXi only as the hypervisor and they didn't support any other hypervisor. So for that we had to build one of the clusters on ESXi and the rest of the clusters we could build on KVM, so creating a hybrid hypervisor environment. If there are those requirements which come up during the design phase anyhow, so we cater for that. Otherwise, we can build it 100% open source, or for in one of our customer cases, we built it 100% on ESXi also. So depending on your budget, depending on what you want to do, what is your comfort level, we can go either ways. But the idea is to make it as cost effective as possible. And today, if AWS and Google can run on KVM, your private cloud can definitely run on KVM.
Correct. So Sunanda, would you like to just, I mean, further extend the conversation in terms of typically for a set of mid-market customer or for a large enterprise customer, based on the number of VMs which they are planning to migrate to a private cloud, for instance? I mean, how much time does it take for you to really go through this process, right? What have you seen?
Yeah, so from a design perspective, it depends on information availability at the customers, and if statistics or data is available readily from his existing monitoring system or all that, then things can happen very quickly, because it's the data gathering is what takes time. Thereafter, as I mentioned, we have most of the stuff is templatized, so that knowledge is very structured at our end. Once we do that analysis and then agree on the design with the customer, then for the build part, obviously there is a lead time for getting the hardware in place, regardless of it being an OpEx model or a CapEx model. Once the hardware is in place, we take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the scale of the cloud, to set up the environment. So if it's a very large cloud, 2000 cores kind of a setup, we'll need about 4 weeks. If it's a small setup, 100, 200, 500 cores, we'll need about 1 to 2 weeks. And then we go through a testing phase with the customer where we do a very comprehensive set of UATs, burn tests, etc., because this is mission critical infrastructure. And then the handover happens where the customer then starts migrating his applications. We provide all the handholding in terms of enabling those, onboarding of applications, any kind of network services support, storage support, etc. And then we move into a BAU phase, which is managing the environment. And then on a month-on-month basis, the team conducts health checks of the environment, any kind of patching, upgrades, updates, all that is done. And a monthly report goes to the customer around all the KPIs which are measured, which is around uptime and ticket response times, etc.
Okay. And so how do you really advise, while the say application teams might be thinking on the which applications to take, which to retain, which to transform, how do you and when do you embed into their process of, uh, when they should move to say a private cloud? I mean,
Yeah, so the first applications we always recommend is to move your non-core application, so that if there is any performance degradation or any change, it doesn't have a business impact immediately. And then things can be fixed. Most 99% cases, nothing like that happens because we do all the testing beforehand. But still, we always recommend as a good business practice to migrate non-core applications first. From an application readiness perspective, frankly, we don't get into that. That's beyond our capability and scope. That is something we leave to that. But we definitely help them architect their infrastructure needs. Because if, let's say, they're coming from a physical environment where their physical capacities, how do you translate that to virtual capacities? All that we can help with them in terms of estimating what would be their workload needs, etc. But from actual migration of the application perspective onto the platform, that we would leave to the expertise within the application team.
perfect. Makes sense, right? Thanks, Sunando. I mean, if anyone has any questions, Prithvi, by the way, on the platform, are there any questions there? If you could possibly read out in case.
Uday, Nachapa here. Nothing on the platform as of yet, but there is one query which is a little more deep in terms of understanding the customer sentiment, right? Like people who are using legacy systems and not used to private cloud. How does that shift happen, Sunando, in terms of what are the challenges that they, or what are the hurdles that you face in terms of convincing them into this model as such, right? And something if you could shed a light on that, so that the audience is more encouraged and understands the benefits apart from what you've already mentioned in the PPT as such.
Also, the challenge typically with legacy systems is application compatibility. And most often, what happens is that when people are running a very old version of an application and which cannot be virtualized or which cannot be run in a virtualized environment, then obviously, frankly, nothing much can be done. So what has happened, like in case of a very large customer of ours, they had set up their environment about 10 years back, which was completely a physical environment and all. So when they were looking at going the cloud way and simplifying their infrastructure and all, they realized that they have to change all the versions of the applications and get to the latest versions, etc. But the benefits that they finally obtained. So let me just give you a context here. So when they started off the entire process of transformation, they were running in their own private data center around 40 plus racks of hardware. At the end of that exercise, which took about a year and a half or almost 2 years, that scaled down to 4 racks. So 90% shrinkage in your infrastructure outlay, which means 90% reduction in power cost, 90% reduction in real estate cost, etc., etc. Much more simplified infrastructure. Earlier, if any application team wanted hardware, they'll have to wait 2 months to get the hardware in place and all. Now there is enough capacity available to provision it in 2 minutes or 10 minutes for the end user. So those kind of metamorphosis, change in infrastructure availability and infrastructure agility can be witnessed by these companies. But obviously, it's a call at the senior most levels in the organization, because more than infrastructure cost, it's the application cost which is a hindrance. So if people are continuing to run very old versions which are not cloud ready, so as to speak, then that's a challenge.
Yeah, got that, Sunanda. Thank you. So to sum it up, it's not just the pricing standpoint, but also the flexibility and scalability, ability to shift from system to system. So there's a lot of value that you bring in. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Awesome. So just we can give another maybe a last minute for anyone to have, if they have any questions. I think we seem to have covered almost all the aspects, and any concluding remark, Sunando, in terms of how people can reach out. Obviously, if you want to reach out, we will share our email IDs over here, both for me, Nacho, and Sunando. You could reach out to us.
Sure, I'd already put up that slide earlier, so if anybody
Yeah,
wanted to do that, should.
Correct. That also is there. Okay.
Great. I think we can close the session now then. Thanks everyone for your
Thanks.
time, and look forward to connecting again in future.
Thank you, Sunando. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.